So today I'm going to talk about something about the broadband. So I remember strongly when I was working in the headquarters R&D around 15 years ago. When we talk about broadband, we just talk about to provide speed up to 512K or 1 meg speed. At that stage, so the broadband only provides service for email, for file downloading, etc., or web surfing. But if you look at what happened today, the broadband is not only related to the internet users, it has been embedded our life. It has been embedded in all the vertical market industries. That's why we want to talk about something about the new broadband. Today, I'm trying to share our ideas about why we need new broadband, and what is new broadband, and how we can build a new broadband network. So in fact, although the broadband has been part of our life, but when we talk about the change of the industry, it's totally different what has been developed. The broadband was never as important as today. So we think that the new broadband is the common demands about the nations, the vertical industries, and the home beings. I try to have answers from these three aspects. So everyone knows that European Union have an important digital agenda 2020. The plan is that to provide 100% coverage to reach 30 Mbps speed, and 50% of the households need to provide 1 gig access speed. But when we look at what happened in the world, in some developed countries, for instance, America and Japan, they are leading to deploy 1 gig access network speed. For instance, Japan almost achieved the whole households to 1 gig speed, and American, the 50 states, has achieved 1 gig speed. But when we look at Korea and China, Korea have planned to cover the whole countries by year 2020 by 1 gig speed, and China also planned to provide 1 gig speed to cover all developed cities. So that's what happened in the world. Secondly, the broadband is no longer in our ICT industry topics. It has been important infrastructure. We can say it's a basic infrastructure for all the vertical industry. For example, when we talk about manufacturers, the manufacturers is doing a big evolution to have smart factories, smart productivities, which allows manufacturers to produce only one single product to meet the personalized requirement, which they can still make perfect. That means they need to improve a lot for efficiency, be very smart enough. Such kind of change creates a big growth of data, and it has strong requirements about the availability, the low latency, and high reliability. That means great chance for new broadband. Thirdly, when we talk about customer experience, everyone knows that the experience is the key to be successful business. But to be honest, so far, either voice quality and video quality is still far away from the expectation. Even though the video service for the high definition is still not good enough, but when the 4K TV, the 4K video is becoming the basic service, it creates big challenges and opportunities for new broadband. At this stage, the 4K terminals are leading a much ahead, but the contents is becoming more and more sufficient. As a summary, We think that all operators in the last 2 or 3 years have been redefined the business strategy. They talk about fiber, radio, and contents. So in order to build the 5 to 10 years business plan, more than 70 operators has been defined their business strategy. No longer a single service. It's more about quintuple or even more bundle services, which means the radio services, the smart home is becoming the fundamental services that create much different demands regarding the transportation, regarding the network. So that's create challenges for today, for ourselves, how we can change our mentality to be future 5 to 10 years oriented, to build a network to support the business needs, the services in the coming 5 to 10 years, at least, or even to be ready at the stage. So let's talk about what are the new broadband. So how the new broadband looks like. So we think that first, the new broadband need to provide super fast speed. We talk about up to 1 gig bandwidth. Secondly, the new broadband need guarantee the cosmic experience, especially for the video part. And thirdly, it needs to provide at least 90% coverage to announce all the vertical industry and homes and people will enjoy the super fast speed. In the past, to guarantee the quality of the voice, the ITU released the benchmark we called MOS to evaluate the subjective experience of the users. So after a few years research by Huawei lab, more than 6,000 customers survey, we have identified 3 important key factors, which is objective factors reflect the subjective experience. The first one, the operation experience, which means when you click the source, the video, including the source thinking, the initial buffering, it should be less than 100 milliseconds, which you are not going to feel any weight. Secondly, when you watch the video, there should be no any blocking. Should be 0 stalling. And the contents of the quality should be also guaranteed. There should be 0 distortion. So by these 3 factors, we have researched as a theory and make a lot of experimental. We find a formulas, which we just input some parameters, and then we can measure the quality from 1 to 5, which is bad to excellent. Here, this example, we have done the test in China market by this methodology. So although the high definition video experience is not too bad, average 3 points, which can be tolerant. But once the 4K TV, 4K video is becoming the fundamental services, that creates a big challenges and opportunities for new broadband. So in the last part, I'm going to share our ideas how we're going to build new broadband. The first point, since the broadband is essential infrastructure not only in our ICT industry, we need open collaboration between our world market and the regulators. Secondly, it won't be a smart way to build on a real independent network, we need to protect the West we have been done. We think a revolution way is more efficient. The last part, we build broadband is support business, is create new business. So it's also quite important to invest for the business applications to stimulate and to show the return of this new broadband. So there are some examples what have been done in some other countries. For instance, in Croatia, the operators have been signed 30 years contract with the 7 state-owned companies, including highway, railway, water factories, which allows the open collaboration to have more synergies, to invest more efficiently. Secondly, in China and in some countries in Europe, for example, in Spain, when the real estate companies build their apartment house, it's required to build last mile for the fiber to the home, which reduce the electric difficulties for the operators to build fiber to home. And also important, we might think that allows deregulation. We might also say it's easy regulation. They provide open access to 76 municipalities, which allows to encourage the operators to invest. So when we evolve to the new broadband, thanks to the innovation and solution of the technologies and solution, which allows the operators and us to modernize the network smoothly. There are 3 important factors we need to achieve for the new broadband. The first one, we talk about super fast, which means by any media, either fiber, or copper, DOCSIS, Wi-Fi, etc., can provide up to 1 gig speed. From the technology point of view, it's achievable. Another important characters should be a simplified network, which means the layers of the network should be reduced from current close to 7 to 10 layers, up to 4 or 5 layers, even be more flat. And the concentration ratio should be much lower compared to the voice or data stage, because the video requires the bandwidth differently. So by these simplifications, it can reduce the latency. It can also improve the experience. And thirdly, the network should be agile, which means it might be much easier to deploy services, be more flexible. It provides much great time to market. And it's also important to have this agile network to improve the operation efficiency. That's also important. The last but not least, we build network, we need have innovation for the business case, which one side stimulate the demands of new broadband, another side can create more revenue, more market for the operators. For one example, the free viewpoint video. So in the traditional video contents, the video was fixed when the detector produced it. But this free viewpoints video attempt to break these restrictions by allowing the subscribers to choose your points from your own angles. So that provides immersive experience as you are in a real environment. That's really amazing. So before I close my speech, I would like to emphasize our industry is changing. It's no longer in a large group of people, a large industry like I support. It has been, the broadband has been fundamental essential infrastructure for the countries, for all the work market. That change needs new and future-oriented mentality, new cooperation model, level-end innovation. So working together, Huawei strongly believe we can build a better connected world. So at that stage, we are just at the beginning of this beginning. Thank you very much.